Hey everyone, welcome to the second video in the Garden Diaries, Medicinal Garden Diaries. Now I know it's been 3 months since I last spoke to you about the garden, and that was just my introduction, my garden tour. So that video was the middle of winter, and you know, gardens are quite dormant in the winter. So really all I did was pull weeds. I have just been pulling weeds and getting used to the garden and discovering where the sun hits and what's in the garden. So during that first video, that first tour, I didn't even know half of what was in the garden, because as spring has progressed here, even though it is actually, technically it's still winter, but spring has definitely sprung, and there are so many new shrubs and flowers and plants that are springing up everywhere in the garden. But a lot has changed in my approach to the garden over those 3 months. I originally was going to, remember I showed you the veggie bed? I was going to turn that into a huge veggie bed. And then as I started clearing it, I realized that there were a lot of problems with the soil. So it made me so frustrated, because the soil is super sandy. There's really nothing that is going to grow in that soil. And that is really evidenced by what I pulled out. There were carrots that I pulled out of that garden that were like barely more than white, and they weren't supposed to be white, because you do get white carrots here. They were supposed to be orange carrots, and there's just no nutrition in the soil for them, so they were just like a very, very pale color, and they tasted awful, absolutely awful. So the only thing that was really growing in that garden were radishes, and the previous owners had left the radishes for so long that I pulled out like radishes with another radish growing on the bottom, like double radishes. Radishes and mint really has been the only thing growing in that garden. And as I've pulled things out, I've just been increasingly frustrated by the amount of money that would have to be invested into the soil to grow anything of real substance. So I did go ahead and plant broad beans during a very enthusiastic period when the sun was shining, the winter sun was shining really brightly. So I just needed an excuse to be out because that's where the sun hits the most in this house. So I was out there planting broad beans. So I've planted broad beans in the first section of the garden, and I've also just recently planted some potatoes that had started sprouting in my pantry. So we'll see how that goes. But what I've decided is that the veggie garden is going to be a learning project on building up soil health. So it's very sandy. There's not a lot of nutrition in there. And I don't want to just spend hundreds of dollars just putting in more soil and manure and everything else into the garden. So I have set myself the challenge of improving the soil without spending hundreds of dollars. So that is going to be the journey that I'm going to take you on in the veggie patch. I'm also going to plant herbs and things in there that do actually improve the soil. So I'll take you along on that journey. Now, something else that has happened is I started a little pot garden, because I can't help myself. I need to be growing things. I need a garden. So as disappointing as it felt to be doing that after I'd moved from Brisbane, where everything was in pots, I couldn't help myself, and I started a little potted herb garden. Now, what started off as 3 little pots and a rose bush and a blackcurrant bush has now become a thing. It is really growing. So I'm also going to continue the Medicinal Garden Diaries in a small space. So our backyard is very small. It is mostly concrete, little patch of grass that has now actually turned into a little patch of weeds, but that's spring for you. So I'm going to take you on that journey too. I'm going to show you how you can grow a medicinal garden just using pots. And I'm going to try and focus as well on doing it on a budget, doing it in salvage things. I'm going to try and bring permaculture principles into my potted garden, and I'll share those with you. So this garden here is going to be an experimental garden. It's going to be how to build soil on a budget and how to grow food and herbs and medicines in a potted garden. And then of course, I'll be adding the kitchen witch element into it and showing you how to use those herbs to let your food be your medicine. So my apologies for the extended time in between videos, but spring is here, the sun is shining, and it's time to get out into the garden and experiment. I hope you'll enjoy the journey with me.